Gang's all here. Dieter and Jake. Tuesday night, 49ers have, well, it's less than 2 weeks now. Is that right?
Until
they play out on
roster
the
cuts?
9th. Yeah,
Until
they got a
play.
week until roster cuts. That's a good segue, Jake. Let's use that.
They got
50
they got through almost 3 weeks. till
almost
day
3
one.
weeks. Okay. 53-man tonight. Surprise cuts tonight. And just, to make it clear, we're not saying these guys will get cut. We're saying that if it were to happen, in the possibility that it happens, it could somewhat be justified given what we've seen so far. But Jake, first off, we got to talk just a little bit, just a little bit about Sunday's game against the Saints, which was, to use the parlance of the day, weird. That was a weird preseason football game. Can't really make left or right about it. What was your big takeaway?
I don't know why Brock Purdy played. I don't, because I get it. I talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
And I'm, I get it. You want reps for your quarterback and, say Jalen Morris to start. You want him to experience what life in hell is like, I guess.
This is what happens. This is what happens when you don't allow us to pay Trent Williams.
Brock, this is what it's like if we just put no one around you and you can go play make like it's Iowa State again. Wasn't that
First
fun?
Off, I would like to point
By
out
the way,
that as
real
someone
quick,
who
I called it Iowa State, not Arizona State, which I usually do.
That's a good point. Congratulations to you for not flubbing it again. Congratulations on doing your job, Jake. Regardless, he didn't play make like that at Iowa State. Matt Campbell had that ship tightly run. So this idea that he had Breece Hall on that team. He had kind of a bitch. Butler, I think was his name, just a bitchin' receiver. Like that. Those Iowa State teams were good. Like
he had one really solid receiver.
I think, this is something. Hakeem Butler? Yeah, something like that. Regardless. But yeah, I am 100% of the belief that it was, yes, Kyle acquiescing to Brock's desires to play preseason football, to feel the pads on his body again, to understand the pace, all these things. But also just a quick reminder, just a quick get out ahead of it for contract negotiations. This is what your future can be like if you want $60 million, Brock, because we got about $70 million of dead cap hits coming down the pipeline. And hope you enjoy Trent Taylor. And hope you enjoy Colton McKivitz. And hey, your roommate's right there. Maybe he can. You can't protect you. That's a real bad break for you, Brock. It was a brutal watch. The game got good once the starting quarterback got out. I don't think I've ever described a preseason football game that way. That it got better when the starting quarterback left. But I thought Josh Dobbs looked pretty good. And frankly, at this point, it feels like he's got to be the number 2, right?
My thing is like, if they were to keep 3 quarterbacks, I think the way they'd handle it is like, if there's like a relief appearance, you give it to Josh Allen. I just called him Josh.
You wish.
Allen.
That's the curtain box thing.
Earlier.
If you were to just combine the 2 backup quarterbacks, both their skill sets and name, it'd be Josh Allen, and then you wouldn't have this Brock Purdy problem.
You'd be great. But yeah, I feel like Brandon Allen is like the take a knee quarterback. If they were in a situation where Brock got hurt for like a drive or 2, I think they'd feel more comfortable with him. Yeah. But if Brock were to miss like a game, they'd be like, it's all Josh Dobbs.
Let's go see what this weirdo can do.
Right. Like, I think Josh Dobbs is more of a chaos, agent sort of situation where you're like, let's bet on the upside because Brandon Allen's probably not going to do it for us. But if it's for a few drives, he'll probably do the right thing.
Yeah, Brandon, I think that's right. Now, the question is, do you bother keeping 3 quarterbacks? And that's something we can get into here in a second with the 53 breakdown. But listen, we will go back consistently to the Tom Moore school of backup quarterbacks. Tom Moore, legendary offensive coordinator, Peyton Manning's offensive coordinator with the Colts, Ron Jaworski, John Gruden calling Monday Night Football, go into a practice, go up to Tom Moore and say, hey, we noticed that you don't practice your backup quarterbacks very much. And John's, yeah, that's something I always did. And Jaws is like, that's something I really enjoyed and this and that. And Tom Moore stops them both and goes, gentlemen, if 18 goes down, we're fucked. And we don't practice fucked. That's
Great.
that's kind of the argument. Doesn't matter if it's 17 or 5 or 4 or whomever. Doesn't matter. If 13 goes down, this team is fucked, and they don't practice fucked.
I think, is that quote straight from the Jaws book on football?
It's from the Jaws book. It has been confirmed recently in the Tom Moore book, apparently. So that's good to know. I've also asked John Gruden specifically if that happened, and he said yes. So that was like, I had so few interactions with John Gruden in his time with the Raiders, but I did get that in because I love telling that story. If 18 goes down, we don't practice fucked is something that honestly I think should replace like live, laugh, love on, like bad wooden decor at TJ Maxx. We don't practice fucked.
I actually got one of those. Well, I can't say what's on it because I can't remember the quote exactly, but I got basically
family in football.
It's like a live, laugh, love fonted thing, but it hangs behind the toilet in our family's bathroom, and it's awesome.
What is it say?
It's I actually have to remember. I have to look up the quote, but it's like basically taking one of those that's like life is about this, and it just replaces like life with shit. So that's really inspiring.
It's an old Dead Milkman quote. Okay. Anything else stand out from the game at all? I think a lot of people were really excited about Jacob Cowing. I would like to note, being the pessimist that I am, his first 2 plays of note came in the second quarter. He was on the field with Brock Purdy, did nothing, and then continued to play, got a holding penalty, and then a very impressive 6-yard loss. I mean, if you can have a 6-yard loss, he went full Tecmo Bowl, running back, cutting back like he was Percy Harvin out there. And but it was still a 6-yard loss. So then he had a wonderful catch down the sideline. He did make some plays as the game progressed, but I think it's a little early on Jacob Cowing ready for prime time because we saw him again with starters, quote unquote, certainly the starting quarterback, and he was persona non grata. You would have confused him for Tay Martin, as I might have done. So what did you take from Cowing? What did you take from anybody else?
I think Cowing, what I'm most impressed by is that he doesn't look shook.
No.
Right?
And he is not a big man.
He's like shorter than I am, which when I see that and I see like Trent Taylor and I'm like, what are you doing out there? Like, go. That's scary. It's scary out there. You're going to break. So for me, and I think from the 49ers perspective, the most notable thing is like, he can catch a punt and run, and he doesn't seem like he's afraid to die. And I think that is crucial.
That matters.
Because I think basically what it sets up is, now we don't even have to play around with, maybe we keep Trent Taylor initially or bump him up. Like, we're just going to run with Jacob Cowing as our punt returner. And when we do have all of our weapons out there and we want like, a speedy slot release, he could probably get a pretty good matchup and maybe beat him. I think that's something where like, is he going to win against a number 1 corner? I don't feel confident in that. Maybe he's, going to get lucky. And if it's in man coverage and he's running a drag, great. Yeah. I think he can win on those all day, but I need to see more to feel that he's got this monstrous upside. I think he's a guy that from the start can be good in situations and return punts for you. And where they drafted him, I think that's great.
No, yeah, I think it's a big win. The comp that I've always tried to make is Tank Dell in Houston, and that's a lofty comp. But remember, Tank Dell wasn't some highly sought after prospect coming out of Houston either. He was kind of a guy who was slept on because he doesn't weigh nothing. He doesn't, he has no height. He was fast and he was wildly productive, but no one was putting him in with the great receivers of the prior year's class. And he ultimately was as impressive as anybody, save for Puka Nacua, out of last year's class. So that is also, you have to think Bobby Slowick, Houston offense, what did they do to help make CJ Stroud the NFL's leading passer last year and one of the best rookie quarterbacks we've ever seen? One of it was that they had a game breaker who can get over the top and a guy who could consistently win on a limited route tree, but consistently won the routes that he can run. You augment that with a scheme, whether it be Bobby Slowick or Mike McDaniel or obviously Kyle Shanahan, which can get guys free off the line. There's a lot of potential there. It's going to take some time. And I think that a little bit of the angst that the fan base, and frankly, I'm feeling right now, about Ricky Pearsall and not understanding where he is, what his injury is, and if this is going to work out or not. I feel like some of that angst has been manufactured into maybe just a bit too much Cowing hype at this juncture. That said, put it in the back of your head, everybody, because halfway through the season, a very viable option is somebody who can come out, and let's be very specific about this. Someone who can be, yeah, exactly. But he's someone who can come out and give you 7 catches for 65 yards and maybe a touchdown. And we're talking what people really want to talk about here. Fantasy football, Jacob Cowing, just keep him in the back. Don't draft him. Don't have him as a handcuff. Just keep him in the back of your head.
Wait
Obviously, Niners fans will. And then if somebody gets hurt, Jacob Cowing's time might be there.
One thing not related to Cowing that I didn't mention in my sort of studs and duds that I was interested in, one other takeaway from the game, Kubiak Bowl, man. The Saints, they're running a lot of what the 49ers do immediately. And running Taysom Hill as a fullback is pretty sick on some of those outside zone runs.
Listen, Taysom Hill had, I believe, as many red zone carries last season as Alvin Kamara did. Now, the Saints offense is going to be butthole because Derek Carr is their quarterback. Let's be expressly clear about this. At the same time, if you're looking for a cheat code in fantasy this year, Taysom Hill as a tight end, that seems like a cheat code. Because who knows? He might also be the backup quarterback because Spencer Rattler sure shit ain't one.
Dude,
he was awful.
People hyped the shit out of him. And every time I watch him, I shouldn't get mad at him for
it's not his fault.
I don't like his game. I don't see it. I
also don't like his face.
Are horrific. Yeah.
It was wildly unimpressive. Can I throw 2 guys at you from the game that flashed to me? We saw another Jake Tonjes sighting. I think I don't think he makes the roster, and I do want to get into that. But man, it's kind of hard to justify not doing it when you carried Ross Dwelley for years and years and years, and here's Ross Dwelley again. And yet, now he's not good enough. Like it feels. Well,
here's the thing. I think Braden Willis is much more like Ross Dwelley. I will say Willis looked like less of a turnstile than he had before. I'm not saying he was. I was wildly impressed.
He'll be average at best as a blocker.
And Brock Purdy,
and he's not
got driven insane by him. That replay of that play, by the way, where just Trent Taylor is on the ground and then Jacob Cowing's on the ground, and then Purdy's like, "Hey, Braden, come here," and Braden's like, what do I do?
When he's running down the sideline and then Brock runs out of bounds on 3rd down. Yeah.
That
was tough. It was a tough watch.
Willis to me is much more like an athletic Dwelley, but even that, I think he's probably a slightly better blocker than Dwelley. Tonjes, at least, I don't know. I've seen him do kind of everything, but he's a really good pass catcher, you know?
Yeah. Again, I don't think he makes the team, but somebody of note. And then Presley Harvin. I don't want to get like deep into punter talk here, but I kind of do.
That's a lie. That's a fucking lie.
I kind of do.
Would love to talk punters.
I mean, that was a fucking masterclass. There were 4 punts that landed inside the 10 and stayed there. Like, and some of them had no business landing inside the 10. His first quarter was a punting exhibition, the likes of which I don't think. I'm just kind of racking my brain as someone who's always enjoyed a good punter. Like, I know that somebody's done it. Like, clearly, like Michael Dixon probably did it at Texas. You know, Matt Araiza probably did it when he was at San Diego State. I don't know if I've ever with my own eyes witnessed such great punting in such a short period of time. And it just warmed my soul. I think that they absolutely they're going to go with Mitch. I think that they would be foolish to let Presley Harvin leave the Hilton. Let's put it that way. I think they'll do their roster stuff, whatever. But, man, I love that leg. And if the 49ers are going to be a team that does more 3 and outs this season, and I think that they might be, because I think this offense is going to be a bit more aggressive than it was in prior iterations, I don't know if I want Mitch, who's a great short distance punter, but not great on letting it all out.
You know, You know what the real 3,000 IQ play is? Keep them
Mm,
both.
that's what I'm
You
talking
just
about,
got
baby.
different wedges in the bag, baby. As
That's what
as
I'm
our
talking.
as our former friend Richard Hightower loved to use to say, it's about the wedges. You got a
It's a
different type of foot wedge in the wedge. I don't know why I gave him a southern accent. He doesn't have a southern accent.
I do declare. A minute. There was one other player that stood out in that
Was it
game.
Curtis
He's not.
Robinson or
No, it wasn't Curtis Robinson. Oh, Alex Barrett or Barnett. Been on
Barrett?
the
No, it's
practice.
Barrett.
Barrett.
He
He's been
has
on the practice
honestly been
squad.
on the team for 5 years,
He's
4
been on the
years.
practice squad forever. Um, he legitimately had a couple of outstanding plays in that game. He has looked really solid in practice. And you don't give him the time of day because you go, oh, he'll just make the practice squad again.
Well,
And then he has a
he's
good
also wearing
play.
the number 58, which is something he needs to change.
He should steal 5 from somebody,
Oh, yeah.
do something.
Yeah.
Go out there with like a swaggy number.
I might tell him
And
that.
listen, the 49ers defensive line is a big time issue. And I am almost certain they will bring somebody from the outside in before week 1. Just because there are going to be guys cut on other teams that would easily be the 6th or 7th best defensive lineman on this squad. But I think it's very difficult to justify leaving Barrett off the team at this juncture. And let's just get into it. Let's just get into the 53. Let's start with defense, if you don't mind. Can we start with defense for like the first time ever when we talk about 53s? And let's start with the defensive line and what you have for us, Jake, and we can debate the scraps of this defensive line, which once seemed so impenetrable and dominant, and now kind of seems average.
Yeah. All right. I
We can
will.
be
I'm going to do a little screen share here.
Let's do it.
For the absolute sickos out here.
Oh boy, we
Let's
shouldn't have used this background.
Let's
Don't
do
worry,
a
I'll change
little.
it. Look at me.
Let's do a little presentation. We got a 49ers roster projection.
There we go.
This is what we're working with, folks.
Okay.
Let's get zoomed in here on the
Google
D line.
Sheets, baby. Okay. So let's talk defensive end. Obviously, Nick Bosa is on the team. He's very good. Legitimately, what you're looking at, Leonard Floyd as well, Yetur Gross-Matos, who can set an edge. You know what? I've questioned Yetur Gross-Matos. Fair enough. I still think there are a lot of questions to be answered with him, but they have been trying to use bigger guys. They were throwing out Kevin Givens on the end in practice a little bit. We'd see some Jordan Elliott on the end in practice. They've been going for a bigger end to bookend Nick Bosa, who barely practices. And Yetur Gross-Matos fits the bill as someone who can slide inside and outside. I wouldn't be shocked if he outsnapped Leonard Floyd this season, but those are your 3 guys, Nick Bosa, Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos. And then it gets a little hairy.
Yeah, you got Bosa, Floyd, Gross-Matos. Beal is just on the team because he has to be.
Why? What has he shown?
He's just someone who plays the position and they drafted and who they played in the playoffs.
I guess.
I'm not saying I've been wildly impressed. I don't really think he has any moves in his bag, and it's worrying.
Yeah.
But like they don't have any other defensive ends.
Yeah.
So I think it's Beal.
Okay.
And there's 4. And then Barrett, I guess. Barrett, like last camp, was honestly more on the inside. They moved him to like 3 tech, which is why I had him there.
Lends itself to what I was just saying as it pertains to, the Niners using larger guys on the end. I think Barrett not only can make this team, I think he can get like snaps, especially if Floyd is going to continue to be underwhelming. And Gross-Matos is a work in progress, though might have finally found a good role for himself in this defensive line. I also just want to quickly note, that this is a big change for the defensive line. The stuff that they're doing where they have guys standing up, they're dropping guys back into coverage in a quasi 3-4. It's more of a 30 stack. Obviously, just moving a bigger end, moving defensive tackles to end for setting the edge. I can appreciate it, but the hallmark of this 49ers defensive line was its simplicity. One gap, no nonsense, no plays really. Just go. Here's 4 guys, line up here, go get them. And that's not going to be the case this season. And I'm interested to see if some of this personnel there's been a lot of changes, but if some of this personnel, which was built for the simplistic, to quote Robert Saleh, all gas, no brakes defensive line, if they can adjust to that style, I think Alex Barrett has done a nice job in that. And honestly, again, can't believe I'm hyping him up. It shows where we're at in the season and what's happened so far in camp that Alex Barrett's getting this much time. But like, I'm all in.
A few things. One, it's crazy to actually look at the 49ers defensive line group and go, really realize how putrid their depth is.
It's a real problem.
Like one guy gets hurt and you go, oh no, it's all over. Two, I think Barrett is interesting. I just wonder if they go, hey, we'll put him on the practice squad and bump him up. And if he impresses enough or somebody tries to poach him, then maybe we sign him to the active roster. I just like on cut down day, I have trouble seeing them using the spot on him. Last thing is one thing that we haven't really talked about at all. This is a kind of a galaxy brain thought because Chris Foerster is like a top, like arguably the best defensive line coach in the business. And this isn't a criticism of him, but you got Staley coming in. You got what the 49ers have run, and Sorensen has been there and Foerster have been here, and they've always run what they've run. And you're very openly talking about changing it up, standing up, just changing what you do a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder how possible that is, because philosophically, wide nine. So I think you're kind of abandoning the wide nine.
Yeah.
Totally.
We haven't seen that yet, to be fair. They're still lining up with those crazy ass splits.
Right. So if you're not doing that, but you're still talking about Chris Foerster screaming and get his ass, get upfield, like
you're
and that's the thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Chris.
They do have two. They do have two great line coaches, and I think the overarching point is their lines are actually kind of shitty. So they're really leaning on both of these coaches. Yeah.
But what I meant to say with Chris Kasurek, not Chris Foerster. Chris Kasurek. The whole thing is about.
It's hard to tell sometimes. I mean, it's kind of the same thing with offensive line too.
Right. But the whole thing is getting upfield. It's firing off the ball. And teams constantly have taken advantage of that and dink and dunk because they'll throw a screen right into a blitz, or when, the 49ers are just rushing upfield, they'll run like a draw or something that just goes right against it, and they'll double team and gap. Or even when they just run, like that aggression, it manifests in, like you saw it, where Jordan Elliott he's told to like get after it and then just gets moved out of the way. And then you've got a huge seam up the field where you get 8-yard run after that. And I wonder if there's going to be any friction with that. I don't think that's something we've mentioned, but you're basically talking about two totally different philosophies coexisting without really addressing if you're fundamentally changing it or just,
part of me,
something to think about.
I'm with you 100% on that. Let's make it even more simple than this. Can you operate with the splits that you operate with and have operated with in the scheme that you're trying to run and effectively stop the run? I don't think that you can. Now, I will say this. I'm operating off of what we've seen so far, and that is an incomplete formulation of the idea, because we have not seen Maliek Collins play at all. And Maliek Collins might tie this thing entirely together. He really might. It's lofty, but he might do it.
He's flashing, though. Like, Dominic Pooney talked today when we heard him, like, he's asked and he was praising every guy, and then he talked about Maliek Collins, and he's like, Maliek Collins, like, he's throwing everything in the bag at him. Yeah, but not to interrupt you, but I think he is an underrated component of this, because you're right, we haven't seen him.
And so it might look and feel, I think feel is the bigger thing, significantly different when you have a 3 technique, or, in this case, perhaps even a nose like Collins, who has at an NFL level been effective both in the pass and against the run. He's not a spectacular player. He's not some guy who's going to fundamentally change everything. And obviously he was in a system in Houston last year that has a lot of parallels to what the 49ers run. It's DeMeco Ryans' team. But again, the Niners did make that move with a purpose. They felt like they could replace Eric Armstead, who, given his injury concerns, is replaceable. They felt like they could replace him with Malik Collins. And by the way, as much as Eric Armstead was a flawed player who did live up to his potential just because he was on the field a lot, but never really was an impact player of the caliber that maybe we thought the 49ers were getting when they drafted him out of Oregon with that pick. I think it was 7. When he wasn't in there, they couldn't stop the run at all. They couldn't stop the run at all. And again, that's Eric Armstead, who is not any sort of a premier run stopper in the NFL, but he was competent and he was smart and he had long arms and he could put himself in the right position and just take up some space. You're never going to have a true two-gap guy. There's not going to be an Al Woods for a 49ers defensive front. But again, Armstead, when he was in, the 49ers had a passable run defense. It was never as good as they pretended it was. It really wasn't. The eye test never matched up with the statistics. That was a pace of play issue. And they really rode that, we haven't given up a 100-yard rusher. Well, yeah, because if you give one guy 75 and another guy 60, that's not technically one 100-yard rusher. But you weren't great against the run. And as soon as Armstead went out, they were giving up 100-yard. I mean, James Conner ran all over them. I mean, it was anybody who wanted action, got the action, and we saw the issues in the playoffs as well when Armstead wasn't 100%. I don't know what they have yet. And with all the moving parts, my natural pessimism is going to sink in because this was not a good run defense last year. It was once a great run defense. It was not a good run defense last year. And Eric Armstead was the guy holding up the run defense. And I don't think of Eric Armstead as some guy who should be holding up a run defense. That's kind of a false, that's a false positive. I don't know what you want to call it there. Regardless, Malik Collins will have to be that guy. So as much as I say he could be that guy, the fulcrum is very clear. He has to be that guy. And the fact of the matter is we don't know, and we won't know until September 9th, which seems to be a trend with the 49ers.
Yeah. I think the one thing they're going to regret is not getting a beefy boy.
I know that we were going to stay off, but like Frederick Weaver coming in with 100% correct statement. I mean, DJ Reader would have been outstanding for the 49ers. But again, now we're operating in a space where they know what scheme they're changing to. You kind of have to build around that. There's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of areas to be exploited. I will note this. Chris Eric doesn't want to do complex stuff, right? He wants to keep it simple. He wants to keep his guys fresh. He wants to have, the dogs go after the rabbit, right? Just go. Don't think, just kill. They're going to have to do things that they didn't do this past season with Steve Wilks as the defensive coordinator, which is actually mix some stuff up on the defensive line. It's something that DeMeco Ryans, frankly, took too long to start doing or start calling. And I know that Kasarik has a lot of say in that, but it's DeMeco's call ultimately on the defense and doing stunts and things of that nature, delays, all this stuff. I think that they're going to do more of that just based on even the simple things that they've been doing in preseason, right? With Brandon Staley already looks kind of complicated. So maybe they can win with some confusion. I also wonder if they have the players with the skill set to win on confusion. The defensive line is not talked about enough. We're not going to belabor the point any further because certainly we have plenty of time to talk about it. And I think we might be talking about it a lot in the regular season. But as worried as everybody should still be about the offensive line outside of 71's status with this team, the defensive line feels just as perilous. Yeah. And when your two weakest units on a team are arguably the two trench units, I have a very, very hard time imagining outstanding things for you moving forward. Hope I'm wrong about that. Hope that the coaching is as good as we think it is, because that could be the difference between a Super Bowl season and a season where you're scrapping and fighting to make the playoffs and it's all skill guys and you're basically playing fantasy football, which we know doesn't really win.
Yep. I'm with you.
Defensive tackle, Javon Hargrave, Malik Collins, Kevin Givens, Jordan Elliott. They're on the team. Kalia Davis is going to be IR'd with the designation, so they'll get him through. He'll come back halfway through the season. I already have Alex Barrett on the team. How many more do you think? Right?
I think it's 8. I think it's
8?
genuinely 8. Yep.
Sure.
I think they go with 8 to start the season and they sign somebody off the street and he becomes their 9th. And
Okay.
they pull another funky move.
Here's the thing. I think that they might not keep that spot. I think that they might go with 9, keep Barrett, and then cut Barrett almost immediately after.
Oh.
And prevent him from going to another team, because at this point, why start treating the guy with respect? And I do think that that might be a move that the Niners make on offense too, where they make, they keep a guy on the roster, they push it forward, and then they make a cut afterwards so that that guy can't get swooped up in the immediate chaos, the sort of free agency period number 2,
right.
that is cut down day and the day after. So,
right. Yeah, that's fair.
Defensive line, it's an issue. Linebacker, hard to tell. Right? Linebackers aren't really doing anything. They're just dropping back in coverage. If it's a run play, they're crashing. We know Fred Warner's on the team. He's incredible. D. Winters, I think, is a starter on this team, whether that's at will or Sam linebacker. I think he's on the field in base sets.
Just changing some colors here.
It's important.
Jalen Graham is a lock. He's a yellow.
Devondre Campbell.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So one of the questions that I had coming into this stream is, who would be some guys who could be a surprise cut? And these, again, are not guys that we're saying are going to be cut. It's somebody that could be cut, and it wouldn't be a complete shocker, like a surprise to everybody else. But if you've watched it, like if they cut Devondre Campbell on cut down day, you would say, wow, that's shocking. That's surprising, but also it's justified, right?
Right. I think Campbell's been pretty good. I haven't seen enough to he's played a little bit in the game. He made one nice tackle.
Yeah.
I need to, watch more diligently in coverage. I hope he gets more of a run in the next game to see. Yeah. But he hasn't looked terrible to me. He hasn't looked washed. I think that was the concern.
He looks stiff though. He
definitely looks stiff. Definitely isn't flying off the ball like Winters or any of these younger guys, which is why the surprise cuts, which let's say we were talking about it. Let's say it's like a 5% chance this person's cut.
Yeah.
And we're saying it's very, very unlikely. But if they were to cut Devondre Campbell, that's the guy I would say, all right, there's like a 5% chance.
Yeah.
They could just cut him and say, we actually love what we're seeing out of D. Winters. We trust Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles and Curtis Robinson, and we actually really like Jalen Graham, so we're going to keep 6 and somehow not Devondre Campbell. I mean, that doesn't really make
there's depth
actually
there.
That would be 5. But
I mean, there's depth there. You can keep a couple of young guys. You can keep one more young guy as opposed to Campbell, who, if you're going to play Winters over him anyway, what's the point of a Devondre Campbell?
Yeah. I think the question would be, is Winters physical big enough to play that will spot consistently, whereas Campbell, he can, whereas Winters feels more like in base, which, again, base isn't run all that often, but he is a guy that can cover with speed and fly around at the edge. But maybe he is physical enough.
I would like to note that they said the exact same thing about the guy whomever gets the job is replacing. And by the way, base is 2 linebackers these days. So,
right.
It just is what it is. So you have 2 linebackers on the field. Do you want it to be Devondre Campbell, who, yes, plenty of experience, and at his peak was a superior player to anybody we're talking about here but Fred Warner? And I include Dre Greenlaw in that conversation. When Devondre Campbell was at his best, he was one of the best linebackers in the NFL. The Niners were able to get him as a contingency plan after Eric Kendricks told him, actually, I don't want to play for you. He was still around. And there's a reason why. The fall off has been severe. And again, I don't think that he's been bad in camp. I don't think you can point to him and be like, wow, this is really sad. Like a once great gladiator in his final days. But you also, if you really think that Jalen Graham or Curtis Robinson or even Tatum Bethune, who I have a hard time getting a read on given the level of competition. And again, what they ask their linebackers to do in preseason, it's so vanilla and basic and minimal. But if they feel really good about any of these guys, and they should feel good about Winters, you can justify moving off of Campbell, knowing that Winters can hold down the fort until Greenlaw comes back. And I think your point, though, is correct. Can you trust Dre Winters to be on the flipping field? The
Dre
dude,
Winters, he might get called Dre Winters, honestly.
I mean, if you are on the practice field and you didn't know better, you'd think that Dre Greenlaw was still playing. They have the same. They're the same kind of player. Now, Greenlaw's a little bit bigger these days.
Yeah,
but Winters is the same size Greenlaw was, at least to my eye. I don't have their specs or measurements.
no, I think
a couple of
I
years
think
ago.
it's about right. Yeah.
So, but Winters, you looked at what happened in that game against Tennessee, has this big hit, which somehow involved no arms, just one of those great no arm tackles that we all love to coach up. And who the fuck is even the linebackers coach for the 49ers? I couldn't tell you.
It's still Johnny Holland, but I haven't seen him out there. He's dealt with.
Yeah, and Johnny's. I mean,
but
I don't know.
I don't know
who's
KJ Wright's been working with him.
I haven't noticed KJ once at practice. Just wanted to note that. So D's out there just throwing his body around, total torpedo mode. Immediately comes off the field with an injury. So I think that the Niners are probably going to have to err on the side of caution, because you say, oh, well, D. Winters can hold us over until Dre Greenlaw comes back. Well, not with the way he plays.
Right.
Just full stop. So, but I do think this is another good point from Frederick Weaver. Like, if Hufanga's back, that's your Sam linebacker. You're in a cover 3 system. That means your strong safety is in the box. And they're going to switch it up, right? They'll move Jair Brown down and have Hufanga play as a single high free. They've been doing a lot of, I call it the triangle, where they've rotated them up and down, depending on which side is the strong side of the field. That's effectively the linebacker. That's also going to be the best position for Talanoa Hufanga to play. I'm not convinced Hufanga's right, but I'm not convinced Hufanga is going to be on the field for the first month of the season.
I think there's a real chance Mustafa can be their second safety. Like I know Georgia, that's a lot of trust, but
as of right now, and let's scroll down here for those who aren't, doing it, because we don't know. As it stands now, I think they're keeping 5 linebackers. I think it's Warner, Campbell, Winters. I guess you say Curtis Robinson. Fair enough. I think Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles still makes the team, and I guess Robinson and Flanagan-Fowles. There's 5.
Yep.
Sorry, Jalen Graham. We'll get to corners in a second. Yeah. Safety. I think they carry 3, and they keep Hufanga on PUP, and they let him get 4 weeks to build up. And that's Brown, Mustafa, and Odom. And then they have Tracy Walker or Mahoney or Hawkins on practice squad that they call up as, the 48th man, 49th man on the day. So
I think that's right.
That's where it's at. I think I'm with you. I think Mustafa can be the strong safety for this team. I think Odom has looked pretty damn good. It's one of the biggest surprises at camp. Like George Odom, I think he's held more than his own. I think he looks spry. I think he's always been a very physical player. I think he's moving around great. I think Brown has been incredible. Jair Brown is going to be a household name. If you don't already know, now you know.
Watching the game when he made that run stop, and I was watching before the play, he was trying to get somebody else aligned, and he, like, the second they snapped it, he read it and just shot it and beat Olave, who was late to try and dig him out of there. That's like he gets it. Like he better, because if you're in a cover 3 system, free safeties are your defense. You don't talk about a good cover 3 defense unless you have an elite free safety. And I know they're going to rotate it, but this is a guy who is going to have to make split-second decisions on which way to go in coverage, and he's going to define this defense in a way that safeties, even too high, if safeties are destiny, what the fuck's a 1 high? I mean, that's beyond destiny. So it's all on Jair Brown's shoulders.
I think he can do it. I think he's a
Yep.
special player. And again, when I say Odom has been good, just checking the comments here against my
Also, when we're
own
talking
good
about
advice.
that play, we're not talking about Odom. We're talking about Jair Brown.
Yeah, Jair Brown. With Odom, again, it's been a big surprise because I just thought that he was a body that they were going to use as the strong safety in practice because, well, we didn't sign enough and maybe we'll go out and sign somebody else and we're just waiting until Huff comes back and maybe he doesn't stay on PUP. Like, I think that Odom has looked better in these training camp practices than I've ever seen him look before. And he has not at any point felt like a weak link on this defense. It is. I don't think about George Odom, and he's out there all the time. I think that's notable.
49ers haven't had a number one wide receiver out there going at him, but you're right. No, I'm not criticizing him. He's been solid. I would like to see Brandon Ayuk go at him so I can decide.
Wouldn't we all?
Not every team is going to have one. So,
including maybe not the 49ers, because who the fuck knows? Cornerbacks. Charvarius Ward, Renardo Green, Diamador Lenore. Frankly, I think you should start all three of those guys, but those are three
I think
locks.
that's going to be day one. I think Isaac Yadam's been out too long. I like Yadam, but having him as your backup is such a sick situation. Like, he's a really good corner.
That's the first I've heard you say that you think that they'll start Renardo Green week one. That's justified.
I think the thing has been they sort of, the way it was playing out, it felt like they would start Yadam to me, and then they'd have Green as their sort of rotational backup nickel. Maybe it does still play out that way. There's still time for Yadam to get back on the field, but he's been out a while, and Green, now that he's playing his natural outside corner spot, dude is a dog. He's the really, really good at playing corner.
Listen, we got to admit we're biased here. This is one of the first guys you identified in draft. He's somebody who, when you first identified him, was considered a day 3 pick, and nobody got more buzz. And I heard from more people. I mean, this is a hit to my ego, and heaven knows that I need all the help I can get with that. I heard more from other people commending the Renardo Green call than anybody I brought up, right? And I'm the Kamani Vidal truther and all this. You were so right on the money with Renardo Green in February, that I'm not going to lie. I think you moved the market a little bit, just a little bit. I think you got the wheels of momentum turning because I heard from people who would be in conversations that matter that you were spot on about Renardo Green. So shouts to you, Hutch. But also we're going to hold on and anchor to Renardo Green.
Yeah, no question. And listen, we'll never admit when that's not true. I think we often admit when we're wrong.
I would hope so.
Which separates us, I think, from some other sick individuals. Because if you're not wrong, you're not, like, you got to admit it. I just think, like, when we evaluate guys, we have like a decent process and things we identify. And with Green, it was just something where you watched him against elite wide receivers and he understood. And granted, like, college defenses are a sick joke and like painful to watch.
Florida State's was pretty good last year, to be fair. Like, in terms of their scheme and some of the advanced stuff they were doing, very different.
And that was probably part of it, is we loved everyone on Florida State. But like, he understood for the most part how receivers would try and attack him. He's physical. Like, he played through the ball super well. He just plays like a veteran coming out of college, which is crazy rare. And Olave got him once, but he was in his hip pocket.
That's right. Listen, I still think that they're going to do the thing where they have Lenore on the outside and then slide him in for nickel and dime stuff, which I don't actually.
That's what it's going to be here.
It's going to be an issue, and appropriately brought up in the chat. Like, it's going to be an issue for Lenore when it gets to contract negotiation time, because I'm certain he'll say, "Oh, I'm a starting outside corner," and they'll be like, "Actually, you played 74% of your snaps in the nickel and like in slide, so now now you're Kenny Moore as opposed to Charvarius Ward." So that's going to be fun for him. I look forward to that.
because he's playing
It's
both positions, which is way harder than playing one.
But if we know one thing about the San Francisco 49ers, and frankly, any NFL team, it's that they're on their bullshit.
Yeah.
Yadam is a backup. I think it's Rock Ya-Sin and Daryl Luter.
Yep.
And you say, Ambry Thomas is effectively done. I think Sam
So do I.
Womack, maybe they keep him on practice squad, maybe they don't. I haven't noticed Chase Lucas at all. And that's not a good thing. In some cases, it's a good thing, like with George Odom, where you're like, he's out there. He hasn't been a problem. That's good. With Chase Lucas, it's like Chase Lucas has played any football whatsoever during this entire, could have fooled me.
Listen, when he does something, he'll let you know, but it's not that often.
He's been pretty quiet, and not in a good way. So that's where they're at with corner. They're loaded at corner. I mean, the fact that they could cut a Womack who has his flaws, don't get me wrong. But, the fact that Ambry Thomas was definitely off this team even before he broke his arm, he started for them last year, and they were going to cut him. So they've done a wonderful job with depth. And
we'll never know if they were going to try and trade Ambry Thomas for a nose tackle, as I so way too often suggested to other writers. As they said, stop. I don't want to hear it again. You're making me sick to my stomach.
I want to make something clear. No one was going to give up anything for Ambry Thomas. I did send out two or three text messages being like, they could get a 7th, right? And those were promptly replied to with no. You're an idiot.
No's awesome. I went to dinner. Caroline and I went to dinner, and we stopped out and we got some sushi.
Yeah.
And
Legend.
This woman came up to us. I mean, the server. I asked a question basically because they had this cute sake glass where they were pouring it out of it. It looked like there was a sake glass inside that was imprinted. Really, it's for ice. So
we heard you like sake glasses, so we put a sake glass in your sake glass.
And so I asked, was this made by like putting a sake glass into this like carafe thing? And our server smiled at me and she went, no. And then she walked away. And I'd never been. It really got me in the gut.
Just owned. No, I don't need to explain it any further. You're wrong. We should try that more often in our disagreements. No. And leave it at that. Can we take a look at the offense here, Jake?
Yes, let's see. The offensive line is going to be a mess.
Let's start with something a little bit easier. Let's start with a quarterback. We don't need to look at them per se. We know who they are. Purdy, Dobbs, and Allen. You're of the mindset. I'm of the mindset they keep 3.
Yep. I think they do. I think they're sick individuals who love having 3 quarterbacks on the roster because they are scarred from times that their quarterbacks spontaneously combusted frequently and often, and in a way where they went never again, and they got Sam Darnold last year, and then they didn't have to use Sam Darnold, and they went, well, are we really going to pay a backup quarterback again?
I mean, that's the flip side of this is they're scarred to the point where they're keeping an extra quarterback, but not scarred enough to get a good one.
Right.
Like, if you're going to do it, do it. Go all the way. Get somebody with some potential, like I know that, I'll go on Larry's show on Thursday night, and I Mordecai looked fine in the 4th quarter against a bunch of guys who wouldn't even make the CFL. I haven't seen anything from Mordecai to justify him beating out 2 guys that have NFL pedigrees, but at least it'd be interesting. This is not interesting. And as you noted earlier, like if Brock Purdy goes down for, I know it's not actually a quarter of the season anymore, but let's call it 4 games. And I think that we should presume when we do win totals and over-unders that like you're going to miss your quarterback for 1 or 2 games. In the modern NFL, like I'm just operating on you get 15 games of the quarterback at most. Your starting quarterback. If Brock Purdy doesn't play, they don't win with the quarterbacks they currently have on their team. Josh Dobbs does give them, I guess, the slight potential of a win. You could also lose by 60 if he's
Josh Dobbs is a spin of the roulette wheel of like we got 4 games. We could win 3 of them, or Josh Dobbs might throw 6 interceptions and our morale collapses, and then we have to bench him, because that's sort of what happened. Like, he came in with the Vikings and was like, "Oh my god, he's life changing," and then he threw interceptions, and then eventually got like benched for, I want to say, Nick Mullins.
Yep.
Shout out Nick Mullins,
Still hanging. Still
hanging around. I
And
think he's
listen,
Sam Darnold's backup now. Am I wrong
he
about
is.
that?
He is, and they might need him.
That's
Okay.
that's kind of wild. That's a Vikings quarterback situation right now. It's
Don't worry
Darnold
though.
and
Justin Jefferson will throw it to himself. Regardless, I think that if there were 4 games and you gave them all to Brandon Allen, they would probably lose all 4. And
I think it depends on the opponent. I think they could win a couple, but in the abstract, I would say you win 1 out of 4.
I think it's I think it's 1 out of 4 upside with both of them. I really don't think that you win games with either of them at quarterback. But ultimately, there's nothing that can be done about that now, because I'm sure shit not saying that Tanner Mordecai is going to win one. So here we are. Just make sure he stays alive. That would be
yeah.
I mean, I guess you can get away with it, New England, Arizona, but then there's Seattle and the Rams in that 4-game stretch too. There's no easy 4-game stretch on the schedule. It does not exist. You go, oh, Tampa Bay and Seattle. First off, not easy games. And then you go, oh, Green Bay and Buffalo on the road. Like, just make sure 13 stays alive. If that means you have to pay Trent Williams a lot of money, I say you do it. But regardless, here we go. Running back. This is where my surprise cut comes into play. And
Love
again,
it.
let's be clear about what I mean by a surprise cut. I do not expect this to actually happen. I don't think. But if it happened, I could say, that actually kind of makes sense. That's bold. That's bold
And
as
then
shit.
you would say, I actually predicted this. So
I think I'd probably lead with that, knowing me.
No question. I would do the same.
Christian McCaffrey is not the cut. He would be on the team. He's very good at football.
Thanks for clearing that up.
I just wanted to make sure that I didn't get misconstrued at all. Christian McCaffrey is on the team. If you needed us to provide that analysis, welcome to football. But Elijah Mitchell's his backup. I think Elijah Mitchell is a really, really good football player. At a certain point, it's all spoken about in the abstract. I can't remember the last time the guy played football. And at what point do you just say, we can't do this anymore? I can't do this. I can't live like this. Because every time he takes 1 step forward, he takes 2 steps back. He is cursed. I feel horrendous for the guy, because when he has played, and we all remember, like, he's a very good running back.
The end of the last season was the best he'd looked, I think, since his rookie year.
And if he's not your number 2, what the hell's the point? Right?
Yeah.
If you can't say Christian McCaffrey's out, let's ride Elijah Mitchell for a while, let's give him 60% of these snaps, then what the hell's the point?
Yeah.
And I am just of the mindset that I know they won't do this, but if they were to just say, there's a roster crunch, let's just be honest about this. If we put Elijah Mitchell on this roster, how many carries is he actually giving us? And how effective would he actually be, or would he even be available for us if we needed him? I don't think that that's there. And Alex asking a good question. Do you think Elijah Mitchell could be a midseason trade candidate? Who the fuck's trading for Elijah Mitchell?
Here's the thing. Well, yes, I would remind you, especially because let me just zoom in a particular name on this roster real quick, real aggressive. This guy, Matt Breida. Remember him?
Good.
Remember him?
Yeah.
He was traded to the Miami Dolphins for a 5th-round pick that became Colton McKivitz. So I'm just saying, if that's what Matt Breida got you, I could see somebody trading not a 5th. 5th is psychotic, but I could see like a 6th-round pick for Mitchell if he's healthy, but then if he's healthy, the 49ers aren't going to trade him. So Right. So it's probably not.
Elijah,
But if they like love what Garendo's doing, and they still have Breed on the practice squad and feel like, oh, you know what? Let's move on. And someone's sick in the head and they want to trade us something. Maybe I just don't. It's hard to see a logical way for that to go down.
Elijah Mitchell is my 2007 Honda CRV. He is just punching way above his weight. He has way more value to me than he would to anyone else. I think, in fact,
Yeah.
I would have to pay somebody to take that car away, that there's no value in the car whatsoever. And frankly, not that, I mean, for a Honda, like came back from a 2-week trip, tried to turn on the car, move it out of the driveway, didn't turn on. Battery was entirely dead. I just replaced the battery. So I thought that was kind of weird. So something was happening there. It's just not reliable. And at a certain point, I could say, hey, man, it'd be nice. You can get like for $179 a month, or I can just go take $5,000 and go get another car that's going to turn on when I need it to. Like, that's fine. And let's just get rid of this.
Right.
Again,
or you could just go with Jordan Mason, which is, even though he's a younger player, he's basically, a 20-year-old Subaru that just, it's not that sexy, but it's got space. It's physical, going to get the job done.
It drives slow in the left lane in Oregon. It's unbelievable. I could do 4 hours. I could do 4 hours on the goddamn drivers in Oregon.
Listen,
Jake.
You hit Eureka and it's just Subaru's falling asleep at the wheel.
It's unbelievable. They think they're being courteous. They're not. I've stopped even taking the 5 through Oregon.
Oh,
I go to the outside. I go to Bend. I go through Bend.
Ooh,
I take state roads. That's how bad Interstate 5 is in Oregon. That's neither here nor there. My point is Elijah Mitchell is worth far more to the 49ers than any other team. I don't think there's a trade to be made, which means they're not going to move on from him, which means that they get to do the Elijah Mitchell thing again. And I hate that I'm kind of pinning this on him because it's not his damn fault that he's too small to play running back in the NFL, but he's too small to play running back in the NFL and he keeps getting hurt. So Jordan Mason's the number 2 now. And again, if you can't just give the ball to Elijah Mitchell as your number 2, what the hell's the point of an Elijah Mitchell? They won't do it. But if they really needed to, and this is not something that I think is pressing, but if they really needed to, they could, and it would be justified.
Yep. Do you want to talk about the thing that has been hurting your heart, the reality that's setting in?
The reality has been on the wall for a while. I have a University of Missouri degree, so illiteracy kind of goes with the territory.
This is what we're getting at.
Yeah, Cody Schrader is probably not making this team, and
we wanted him to.
I think he had every opportunity to, if we're being honest. I'm not going to pretend as if Cody Schrader got done dirty by the offensive line play in front of him, or he's had multiple opportunities, and you watch him in the games and he doesn't have that cut ability that's necessary in this offense to be an effective running back. You've seen a lot of plays where he's getting tackled at the line of scrimmage, and it's just not there.
He's like a little like bowling ball, like closer to like a Mike Tolbert, which is, I know Mike Tolbert's actually electric. But I'm just saying he's more of like a
CJ Anderson type, something to that.
God damn it. Yeah. He just doesn't have that. You want him to have a little bit more cut and go. And occasionally he does, but he's had a lot of chances, and there's a reason they're showing him a lot.
It's not there. Now, practice squad, I think, is viable, and legitimately it'd be something I'd like to see. I don't think it's going to happen. In fact, it won't happen. I'd like to see him behind a competent offensive line, which they have not put him in front of, but that's giving a guy who's an undrafted free agent far too much benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give it to him because he was the best running back in the SEC last year. And if you watched him, clearly he had a really good offensive line in front of him. And he was awesome. He was absolutely awesome. I thought that could be a possibility. You got it. You got to have more pop. You got to have more flash when you're going up against second and third stringers. And he's just been kind of getting wrecked. And some tough luck, but welcome to the real world. That's how it goes. I think they move straight to the practice squad. I think that they go with 4. and then obviously Juszczyk, McCaffrey, Mitchell, Jordan Mason, who's the number 2, and then Isaac Guerrero, who came back to practice today, and of course just looks like the second coming of Raheem Mostert.
Very fast.
I mean,
very fast.
He's an impressive athlete. You can see why the hamstrings get tight. He's fast.
You just watch Bobby Turner go.
Yeah. Bobby Turner was kind of amped. He was amped giving him, he's just like, you do 2 and then you give a little shoulder and then you go. And it's like, It's exactly what we've been saying. I know that the scheme has gotten a lot more complex since we started covering this team, and that they've done more gap stuff with this line. They're not going to be as diverse as they have been in recent years. That a lot of that went away when Mike McDaniel went away, because you didn't have that guy coordinating the game. Förster is going to be more of a just straight zone kind of guy. Pooney's inability to get to the outside on gap plays is an issue. Now, he's really, really good at zone. And that's why he'll start. But you're starting Nick Sakelj right now. If the season started on Sunday. And you got Jalen Moore and Colton McKivitz on the outside. Guerrero, one cut and go. That's going to be something to watch in the second half. It's going to be something to watch in the second half for sure. Plus, ideal kick returner under the new rules. Not that anyone's going to be returning kicks.
Maybe not at the start of the year, but
Breeda's looked pretty good. What do you think?
Yeah, but he was available, and so they'll go, hey, we're going to keep you on the practice squad as a vet. We love you. You love us. You missed us. We know you missed us. Hang around, or don't. And, whatever.
Papa J asking, who backs up Juice if he gets hurt? The answer is Braden Willis.
It is Braden Willis, unless they keep Jake Tonjes. And he plays. I think Willis, he played that role at Oklahoma. He just needs
true H-back.
I just want him to punch somebody a little bit harder. I need him.
Yeah.
I need him to be a little less here and more. I am a bull running at you, and I have no fear for my own well-being.
Little less Big 12, a little bit more Big 10. That's what I'm asking.
Right. I need him to be more Cody Schrader, in terms of blocking.
We all can't be Cody Schrader.
But it is.
He did have I will note this about Schrader. He had a nice special teams tackle in the game, and that is a way to get called up to the NFL.
And he picks up blitzes. He can block. It's true.
I don't think you should let him walk out the door, but I don't put him on 53. Not right now.
I am completely with you. I think
Not with
49ers keep 3 tight ends.
Yep.
Kittle. Saubert's been pretty good. He's
so.
a solid blocker.
He's better than solid as a blocker. He's a beast as a blocker, Jake. He's a legitimate.
That's why he's been in the league for 7 years, something like that.
I'm stunned actually, because you earlier noted that Willis is a better version of Dwelly. I don't see the comp there. Maybe that's a white guy thing with Tonjes and Dwelly, but I get where you're coming from, right? An athletic move tight end. That's what they like to call him, the move tight end. The fact that Charlie Warner got money from the Atlanta Falcons to be a blocking tight end, despite never appreciably being good at blocking. And then Eric Saubert was just out there, and they're like, I guess we'll bring this guy in. And he's this is the highest.
He's better than what they've had.
He's a fucking hoss. He's huge, and he just moves dudes on the line. Yep. And I'm interested if the Niners want to use more 2 tight end sets, because that would really free up George Kittle. I don't know what happens with Trent Williams. I do know that Colton McKivitz is going to be a problem for this team on the right side. We knew that. Yes. You gave a little bit of benefit of the doubt. It has all been extinguished. It's a real problem on the right side. That means Kittle's going to be your effective right tackle again, unless you want to do some 2 tight end sets, in which case Saubert can take all of that and let Kittle actually be the receiving tight end that we know he can be. There's something there.
Correct. I'm with you. And just to round off tight end, Cam Latu, I'm trying to be a little nicer, but you all know where I stand. I don't see it. I just don't see it.
Haven't seen it yet. Don't think Friday's going to change anything either. The Niners have been trying. God, they've been trying. That's a little bit of them, not being able to swallow their pride yet. But Cam Latu, if he's on the 53, given everything that we've seen, given the actual depth at that position, and again, it's not spectacular or anything, but it's better than what it's been. If they keep Cam Latu, that's an indictment on Kyle and John, that they're too prideful. Because if he wasn't a third round pick, if he was, let's say, in the same position as Mason Pline,
oh yeah,
he would have been cut so that they could bring in another defensive lineman off the street midway through camp. I mean, he's done nothing. And by the way, Danny Gray is in the same camp as we move to wide receivers. Danny Gray has been abysmal in practices. And I mean, I guess you could say he had a nice catch.
Oh, the punt. Oh, the punts today.
I just kept an eye on him the whole practice, and he had more than a handful. I mean, literally, I think he had a half dozen drops, whether it was on punts or just in drills. And it's like, dude, I get that you're fast, but like your job is your hands. It was a brutal day. And by the way, like just another one, right? When has Danny Gray had a good practice that you've seen over the last month? I haven't seen it. I haven't been there every day,
one
but I haven't
career
seen
catch.
it.
It's
just one career catch.
He is exactly one career catch, and it made me just sad to watch him today. Like I'm not trying to rip. It really was like hard to watch because he just kept dropping punt after punt, and you're like, dude, come on, man.
You knew it was the end of his NFL career, and I asked you straight up, does he get picked up by another team? And you're like, no. Which, listen. I mean, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, but
I could see him getting another chance for sure, just on the speed. Third round pick has speed. I think he gets another chance at but I haven't seen anything to make me think he's gonna. And remember, when he got drafted, it was that 2020 draft, and it was like this guy is a pure speed hit or miss guy, and he might whiff, but the upside is great. And
well, he
haven't seen really much of the upside. Let's talk receiver. Jauan Jennings, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Jacob Cowing, Ricky Pearsall are the 5, assuming Ayuk's there. And then it's really a competition for the 6. The only interesting one I got asked about today, and interesting in the sense of like maybe there's a little upside, is like Robbie Chosen. What do you think on that? I don't really see it happening, but
I don't see it happening, but I do see it on the practice field. I mean, he's pretty good. Like he's pretty good, but I don't think he's good enough to force them into dropping Chris Conley.
I agree.
I think that's where we're at. I think Conley, not just for, I mean, he's fine on the field. Like Chris Conley's not going to win you a game, but he won't lose you a game. Gives you good special teams. Like Conley's, I think, on the roster. I think he's the last wide receiver on the roster. I think that they also are very conscious of having a veteran who thinks the game the way Conley thinks the game in the room. And it's not to say that Jauan Jennings and Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk don't think the game. They very much do. They're also not at the points in their career where they're interested in taking Cowing and Pearsall to the side and saying, hey, let's work on this, or let me show you how Kyle wants it done, and helping Leonard Hankerson, who's a young coach, but I think a promising one, and certainly better than the wide receivers coach they once had. I think that veteran presence is vital when you have 2 young receivers, and the 49ers, in particular, Kyle Shanahan, asks as much of their receivers. Ayuk, Samuel, and Jennings, they got their own shit to worry about. They got snaps and stuff.
And Conley is like, as a veteran who saw the downside of being a veteran, like he had to know everything. And he literally, his job last year when he got those chances was to know every single position.
That's right.
Inside and out, which I think Ray had to do a little bit. Didn't totally know it in the same way Conley did. Yeah. Conley had to know every position. Deebo's not doing that. Ayuk's not doing that. They cross train a little bit, but like really That's a
their
pretty
rules.
rare thing to have, and to have him where he's a coach on the field and still productive. It's not just a charity. Like,
Yeah. No, and
it's
they gave
he's I
him
think
a
a
new contract. I mean, they
little
made
bit
a
of guaranteed
commitment to
money.
him. There's something there. So here's the guys who are out. Ronnie Bell is out.
Yes.
It's not worth the trouble anymore. It's not as painful to watch as the Danny Gray situation because it doesn't feel. I feel
Yeah,
like Ronnie Bell will get another shot somewhere. Like he's caught a
Ronnie Bell,
touchdown.
listen, he makes some impressive catches, like, under pressure. He had one today, but
Yeah.
he's too inconsistent, and he doesn't have the athletic upside to say, "I'm willing to get through that, and I don't trust him
Yeah.
as a punt returner."
That's right. They shouldn't because he's pretty bad at that. Trent Taylor might stick around on the practice squad. He has no guaranteed money. They can cut him with impunity. Now, that's not to say that he won't play for the 49ers this season, but he's not a wide receiver. He's a guy that you bring in if whomever you're trying as a punt returner can't return punts, in which case you throw Trent Taylor out there because he'll catch it. They literally did that for an entire season. They just had Trent Taylor out there, fair catching. That was his job. Richard Hightower at his finest, ladies and gentlemen. Danny Gray's out. I think Robbie Chosen is out, but they say, hey, if something else doesn't work out, you you got something here. And if one guy goes down, he might jump up a couple of guys. I mean, he's got some very interesting deep play ability. There was a beautiful throw from Purdy to him today at practice. I mean, A+ stuff from both of them. That I can't unsee.
Absolute dime. Yeah.
In between two guys in coverage, like 60 yards down the field. I mean, it was high level. That was $60 million worth of quarterbacking right there.
Yep.
And, Chosen had to do his part, and he did it at an extremely high clip as well. I think that it wouldn't stun me if Robbie Chosen was kept around as a 7th wide receiver. Let me put it that way. I don't think that they're going to keep 7, but if they had to choose a 7th, I don't think it's Taylor, and I don't think it's Bell. I think it's Robbie Chosen.
I'm with you. I don't think
chat because Papa J is saying that Trent Taylor is better than Pearsall. It's an elite troll, but let me tell you, keep this negative Pearsall energy,
dude,
front of mind,
dude.
Because I'm going to tell you you're all wrong again.
By the way, with that one play that Brock tried to throw it to Trent Taylor, and Trent Taylor got turned into a defensive back.
It was so bad.
And I sent you that Akon locked up.
Yep.
I really hit that note. That was hard for me.
Thank you. Thank you, Jake. That was beautiful.
I just cringed at myself. Let's move on to offensive line.
Yeah, speaking of cringe, okay, so here's where it stands. Trent Williams might retire. We're going to pretend as if the 49ers are going to be smart and give him whatever he wants. And we're just going to do. And by the way, like I've been bashed a million times over for being like anti-player and like anti-union and all this stuff. I don't think those are substantiated claims, but ultimately I am very cost conscious in real life. And I'm very cost conscious when it comes to players. I've been forthright in saying that, the 49ers would probably be fine long-term, not for this year, but long-term, if they move on from Brandon Ayuk, that they shouldn't pay any receiver $20 million again, moving forward, that wide receiver is a bubble and that it's going to be the modern day running back because of the talent coming out of the college game. This is all galaxy brain thinking. It's not how it's actually going to go down. I don't think I've ever been more pro player than I've been with this Trent Williams 49ers situation.
Oh yeah.
Their season is over. Over. Arguably more so than if their quarterback goes down. And you just heard what I said about the quarterbacks behind Brock Purdy. Their season is over if Jalen Moore, who's a lovely guy, and
I actually thought he had a really good start to the game.
He's fine. He's fine. Yeah. You're done. It's the worst offensive line in football if Trent Williams doesn't play, Jake. The worst. I just want to go through left to right what they were dealing with today. Okay, and this was their first string. Jalen Moore on the outside. you know what you're getting at this point.
Nick
okay?
Zakelj.
Nick
guard.
Zakelj at left guard. Nick Zakelj spends more time on the floor than Brandon Pajemski. Jake Brendel was the center today. Jake Brendel has had a snapping issue
Dude,
all camp.
does he have like a hand thing? Like, what's going on?
Know. I don't know if it's small hands, big hands, broken hand, whatever. He can't snap it in shotgun. He can't snap it in shotgun. Every third snap is bounced. It's a real issue. And it's something that we can't even entertain yet because there's so many other issues happening. We can't even bring up the fact that the guy whose job it is to snap the ball can't do that very well. Dominic Pooney's at right guard. Dominic Pooney has been solid. Fine.
Question.
Is he the best offensive lineman on this team right now?
Correct. Yes. That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Yes, he is. Until Aaron Banks comes back. But a lot of people don't think Aaron Banks is any good. So, yeah, Dominic Pooney is the best offensive lineman on this team right now. And, again, I want to make this point because the right tackle is Colton McKivitz. He's been awful. And I know that some people are saying, oh, he's trying out new stuff. The things that you do when you're beaten don't qualify as new things. The improvisation because someone's kicking your ass doesn't count as a cool new move for your bag. It's flailing. That's what it's called. It's called flailing. And that's what he's done all camp and certainly in these preseason games. The dude still doesn't have an anchor, and we're looking at a Mike McGlinchey-like situation, except he's not as good as a run blocker as Mike McGlinchey was. So that's going to be fun. Effectively, George Kittle or Eric Saubert is your starting right tackle because you're going to have one next to him at all times to double team.
Listen, Nick Bosa, top 3 edge rusher in the league.
No doubt.
But he's walking by practice after practice. And it's like occasionally gets stopped, but it's very, very easy. And you would like for your starting offensive lineman to semi-consistently put up a fight.
Here's how this is going to go. Jalen Moore will, if Trent Williams follows through on the threat to become a large golfing man, if he follows through on the threat and just doesn't show up, which you should absolutely believe he will follow through on that threat. This is a man who once held out until October. Okay. If he follows through, Jalen Moore will actually have a PFF grade and all that. Very good season. I really believe that because the other team is going to go, we're just going to put our best pass rusher against McKivitz. Doesn't matter who is on the left side. If it's Trent Williams, we're sure as shit doing it. And if it's Jalen Moore, we'll still probably do it. They're just going to have the best one. And teams with 2 are going to have a field day, an absolute field day. I got to mention something about Pooney here. He's still a work in progress. And it speaks to how bad this offensive line is that Dominic Pooney is being held up as this miracle man. Wow. Comes out and he's been really good. I don't want to disparage the kid. He should start. He really should. I think he's their best right guard right now, given that I haven't seen much from Burford in camp. Now he's injured. Feliciano is injured. I guess they're going to IR designate him. Banks, Pooney should be the right guard. He's a really good zone guard. In tight spaces, he gets to the spot. When he gets his hands on you, they stay on you. He's got pretty good anchor. They can't run gap stuff with him. That might come. It probably won't. I think he's a plotter. That's going to be interesting. So that's fine. The fact of the matter is when Dominic Pooney is being held up as the story of camp, it speaks to how camp has gone, right? This should be an afterthought because I'm not going to lie to you. Pooney hasn't looked as impressive this season as Spencer Burford looked his rookie season. Now, Burford's game never really got to that next level, right? And maybe that's still in there.
Yeah.
But when Burford showed up, 5th rounder, UTEP, you go, well, they're fucking starting this guy? They did, he was like a toss-it in the draft. No one knew who the fuck he was. And then you watch him and you go, oh, yeah. And they were just like, yeah, he's there. He's good.
Yep.
We're not going to think about it. And you know what? He never got any better. And so some of the warts that were there when he was a rookie came through. And it came through in spades in big, tough moments. To the point where he was never truly the full starter. They kept moving Feliciano in. Feliciano can't do that now because he's injured, and who the hell knows what you're going to get from him.
Yeah.
But don't hold up Pooney like he's now going to be an all-pro or anything. He could get there. I think he has the potential to get there.
Yeah.
But we're talking about a high floor and to be determined ceiling guy. Just acknowledge. Let's all pump the brakes a little bit on the Dominic Pooney love and the cut-ups and all this. We know what he was. He's showing what we saw at Kansas. There's a reason he went in the 4th round. It's not because the 49ers are smarter than everybody when it comes to offensive linemen. It's because he fits their scheme best, and ultimately they might be calling upon him to do things that he can't do, and that's going to be a pretty tough day inside the regular season.
Yeah. So offensive line, I don't know what is gonna go down here, because let's say they get Trent. Let's just assume they get Trent back in the building,
He
right?
better. I mean, I'd pay him whatever he wants.
You got Trent, Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, Dominic Pooney, Colt McKivitz. That's your 5.
Yep.
You got John Feliciano going on IR. They want to bring him back, or he just retires. Probably comes back middle of the year.
Right.
Backup swing tackles, Jalen Moore.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Parker's.
No, Brandon Parker's cut. You don't even have to talk about him.
Right.
So
they
is
have
Chris
Isaac
Hubbard.
They have Isaac Alarcon just as like their international pathways guy. Whatever. He looks like
actually
look
look nice. Like Alarcon's got something. You put like he's got 15 pounds on that dude. There's something there.
Totally. Would they keep like Hubbard?
No.
I don't see any reason to. I'm just like thinking if they don't have Trent, they don't have a backup offensive tackle.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't know what they do there. Their backup offensive tackle is Jalen Moore. They don't have 2. I suppose they toss Pooney out there. I think Kingston makes the team.
No, Kingston definitely makes the team, but like, would they throw him a right tackle?
I think they prefer Pooney to Kingston, have Burford slide up to right guard.
That's fair.
There's also the Ben Barch of it all. And then there's the Kelge.
Oh man,
Jake, it's the worst offensive line in football without Trent Williams.
Let me bring you to the zone of despair right here, folks.
Well, except for one name.
We love Drake Nugent. We love Drake Nugent, but he can't anchor. But at least in the run game, he is a hoss.
Neither can the starter.
Right. So like Ben Barch, basically Chris Furster was like, Ben Barch basically sucks at center, but he's okay at guard. Nick Zakelj sucks at guard, but he's almost okay. That's basic, and it's not me saying this. This was like Chris Furster last week, basically saying it. And then he's like, and then Nugent's right in the middle of all of it. He's clearly not sold, because how could you be sold? And we're not talking about starting. It's like, we're talking about if the 49ers lose Jake Brendel, who again can't seem to get the ball into Purdy's hands from shotgun.
Right.
Who is it? I think it's Zakelj, who I don't think is an NFL player.
Correct. Worst offensive line in football until 71 shows up. And then it somehow gets average. That's how good that guy is. Listen, I think Nugent sticks around on the practice squad, and there might be a point here halfway through the season where you just say, fuck it, we'll ride with the young one. If we're going to get the same thing, we'll go with the guy who's younger, because maybe he can get better. I like Jake Brendel a lot. I think he's a great dude. I think he's a really sharp guy. He's the one doing the protections. These sort of things matter. It's why they won't go with a rookie. It's why they'll give him every opportunity. But it is fundamentally fucked that he can't snap the ball right now. And it's been an issue for him in his career, to be sure. But like, it's a real issue right now. And I don't know how that gets better. I really don't.
I don't either.
And it makes sense that it's getting worse, right? It makes sense that it's getting worse in the sense that he's tentative, right? He doesn't have anchor, and he's played at a lot of NFL. I don't know what he's compensating for physically, but he is just trying to get out of his stance too quickly, and he's not snapping the ball fully, and he's bouncing it. And I don't know if you go, well, just don't get out of your stance as quickly. Well, that could end very poorly for him. Would you rather have the ball bounce or have your center flat on his back? Like, I think that those are your options right now with Jake Brendel. So things are going great on the offensive line.
Yeah, and that concludes our 53-man life is hell roster spot. I think some transactions that will need to happen. They will need to add a defensive lineman. I don't know if it's a
Yeah.
defensive end, defensive tackle. They have to do that.
Yep.
They just don't have any depth outside of 8 guys, and they barely have depth with 8 of them.
But here's the flip side of that, Jake, is strictly every team's offensive linemen suck. Like anyone you're
True.
cutting sucks. Every team no team is just, there's some teams that are loaded up at defensive line where they have too many good defensive, like NFL caliber defensive ends. That's fair play. That's fair play. Are we talking Henry N? We going back? We going back? Super Bowl centers? Is that what we're talking?
Yeah,
Ben Garland?
Yeah.
I don't know what Ben Garland's doing. Ben Garland I love Ben.
Get him.
I love talking
Get
to
him
centers. But regardless, I don't think that there's just some offensive lineman out there who's going to get cut who suddenly is like, maybe he's worthy of this roster. But
listen, man, for a team that is supposedly very good, it has such just dog shit vibes. Like just
it has dog shit lines.
Yeah, so many things that are like not just us being like, oh, it's maybe a concern. It's like this thing could fall apart.
It might not.
Like
they got
I'm not saying it will.
They got a ton of skill players. The defense has a chance if that line is competent to be outstanding because it has really good linebackers. Even when we're debating, like the fact that Devondre Campbell is cuttable speaks to the quality of depth at linebacker. And obviously you have
great coaches
on the defensive side. I think Nick Sorensen has been really impressive. That I don't know what the delineation of power is between him and Boy Genius over there, Brandon Staley. Yeah. I don't know how much shadow government is actually happening, but I'll say this: that defense is fucking organized.
Yep, no question.
And they're trying stuff. I mean, they are impressive. They're impressive when it comes to just operating on a day-to-day basis, and they're talented as fuck, especially in the secondary.
I think in the end, they will probably figure out most of this stuff, and it'll look pretty good. But they have had a lot of injuries, have spent a lot of time with these stupid negotiations, and don't have the full puzzle together yet. And to pretend that they do is just being ignorant of reality.
When's the deadline for you? I think everybody is so over all of this when it comes to the Ayuk situation, which, just shut the fuck up. Either do it or don't. And then, with the Trent situation, which is just a fun Cold War they got going on. Like, what is it? Cut down day? Is it Saturday? Is it the 8th of September? Like, at what point do you need to have the shout out David Lee full squad intact?
I think you want to have 2 full weeks of
2 full
practice.
Weeks.
I think you could get away with 1 if it's Trent. I think Ayuk being in the building is helpful, but doesn't really matter. So it's basically cut down day is what? Next week, in Tuesday, a week from
next
now.
Tuesday, 27th.
1 week from now. The real deadline again is, the Monday. But I think cut down day is probably a good one. This thing is so stupid. I can't even talk about it anymore. It's
we're
so
done.
dumb.
I mean, I can. Trust me. I can.
I can too.
It's brutal.
Let's say a week.
A week and then
a week and then we just start panicking. We say, burn it down, fire everybody, get them out of here. These people make me sick. I don't know who we're talking about specifically, but just, these people make me sick. I'm sick of all of this. And we start getting into capitalism, how the system needs to get burned down.
Okay. Calm down.
Sorry. That's not where we were going with this?
Well, I mean, we could, but I don't. We're trying to build audience here, not lose it. And trust
Sorry.
me,
Sorry.
by
Just
implying that Dominic Pooney was a 4th round pick instead of what he actually was, which was a 3rd, we're already losing more. Listen, the Live Hive was out of control tonight, and in a good and bad way. Some of you, come on now. But everybody else, like, big ups. Good conversation there, y'all having in it about amongst yourselves. I want to find a couple questions here. Just go at it. Jordan Anderson, record prediction for the 49ers. The over-under is set in 11.5. I didn't set it. Let me leave it that way. What is your record prediction starting September 9th and running until January 5th? What is the 49ers regular season record?
11-6.
11-6. Okay.
I keep having to do the math. I'm still sick to my stomach over the 17 game thing. Just the math.
Wait until it turns into 18, Jake. And
that'll always be cleaner.
I'm going to say 10, but I have a feeling. Well, how about this?
It does feel like 10. Yeah.
10
and
they got
7. A lot of tough games.
They do.
Yeah.
And I think that, it might be at this point, just, we know everybody, but like for some folks, it maybe has not gotten home yet, or they haven't heard this yet. Like, their first 4 games of the season, Jets at home Monday Night Football, at Minnesota, who they're in a great spot right now. Jesus Christ. At the Rams, New England at home, Arizona at home. To say nice things about all these teams, the Jets have Sauce Gardner and a pretty good defense. And who knows, maybe Aaron Rodgers plays a full introductory game this season. There is some talent around him, to be sure. Breece Hall is there. That's going to be a problem for the 49ers. Garrett Wilson is going to have moments because he's just that good. And that's probably as healthy as their offensive line, which is a bunch of old farts, is going to be all season. So Aaron Rodgers, who, by the way, looks slow, just does not look like he's moving well from what I catch on the NFL Network or ESPN. Maybe that's all a rope-a-dope from the Galaxy Brain Man himself, but that's about as healthy as Rodgers is going to be all year. And maybe he'll be tentative coming off of the injury, or maybe the ayahuasca will have hit in and he'll just be ripping it. Like, I don't think that that's a gimme game. Niners will be favored.
Season opener. No season opener is easy.
Yeah. Okay. Then Minnesota, like,
gotta win.
You have to win it. There's no question about that. Kevin O'Connell did a number on this team last year.
Yep.
He did. Now, Kirk Cousins was the quarterback, but their defense, that's a Brian Flores defense. I mean, he's been telling those guys that they're terrible people all day, every day. They might internalize it by then and just start hitting the shit out of dudes. So I don't think Minnesota's a gimme. You look at the schedule legitimately, I see one gimme. There's one gimme on the entire schedule. Week 4, New England. New England might not win a game, Jake. And I'm dead serious about that. It's legitimately one of the worst NFL rosters I've seen in a long time. They're really, really bad.
I also still think this team's gonna, at least, I think they'll probably sweep the Cardinals. I know Kyler's back and they've got some stuff, but we'll see.
I am
division games, not easy.
I'm not.
I think 10 and 7
Cardinals.
sounds pretty reasonable, but
okay. But let me just run. Jake's going to go to Japan because he's a man of the world. Let me just run through.
Yep.
Jake's doing that in September. He's going to miss all the good stuff. I mean, the Rams is no cupcake in week 3. I don't think Arizona's a cupcake in week 5 at all. I think Arizona's getting slept on.
And then I land for the Patriots game.
Yeah, well, don't bother showing up. Don't fly into San Jose so that you can make it to the ball game. Week 6 at Seattle, Thursday Night Football. That's followed by Kansas City at home, Dallas on Sunday Night Football, bye week, at Tampa Bay. Okay, at Tampa Bay, off the bye, cross country. Look at it however you want. Maybe that's a gimme too. Maybe it isn't. I don't think flying to the East Coast makes it ever a gimme. Then home against Seattle. And by that point, Mike McDonald's going to have that defense buzzing. Million things can happen. But if rosters stay relatively intact, I'm betting on Mike McDonald to have a defense that just is confounding in Seattle. They got
Yeah.
some real playmakers on
I'm
that side of the ball.
excited to see them. I know that's gonna upset some 49ers fans, but
That's
that's
fine.
like it's a very interesting team.
Yeah, they might be the most sneakily interesting team. Like the team that no one talks about, and then there they are with
Also,
10 wins at the
Devin
end of the season.
Witherspoon, man, just awesome player.
That entire defense has a real shot. They got a real shot to be like special this upcoming season. And then we made it to Thanksgiving, the week before Thanksgiving at Green Bay, the days after Thanksgiving at Buffalo. Okay, then you get Chicago.
Cold.
Then you get Chicago at home. I think that the Caleb Williams hype train is maybe moving a little bit too fast right now. I actually have watched the Bears play, and the highlights are spectacular. You win with structure in the NFL. He might have figured out structure by then, though. That dude's special.
They might put Keenan Allen up for grabs at the trade deadline.
And the 49ers might be interested because they do need an offensive lineman. Okay, and then they get the Rams Thursday Night Football at Miami, Detroit Monday Night Football at Arizona. I mean, oh my God.
It's not a fun time.
It is not a fun time. Oh, by the way, they have the worst rest differential margin in the NFL this season. Like this schedule, and frankly, this offseason has been built to kill this team. So if they win 10 games, that is a fucking celebration in the streets. It'd be really impressive. It'd be really impressive because they're more talented than 10. But the world is conspiring.
Injuries. My gut is they're gonna have not a 2020 over again because that was unprecedented, but like maybe they get lucky that they had these injuries in camp, but like I don't think that's how that works. I think they are in pain. But I'm going to stick with 11.
Let's do one here. Is Pooney a better tackle than McKivitz? No, but
I don't think so.
Hard to say.
Haven't seen him there really.
And I think that's for good reason, right? Because then you're out in more open space, and I think that Pooney operates best inside of closed quarters. You want him in tight spaces so that he can get his hands in the right spot on you and keep you got. Whereas, if he's moving around a lot, that he can find himself in bad positions. I think there's a reason they like him at guard. I think it's a very good reason, and he's a very good guard. And you put him outside of that comfort zone, and things can start getting hairy pretty fast. I think that as bad as this offensive line looks to be, they have done a very good job of identifying cheap guys who can play inside the scheme, particularly on the inside. And that's a sacrifice fiscally that Kyle Shanahan has made since they let Laken Tomlinson walk out the door. They're not going to pay guards, and they've done a really good job, all things considered, in replacing them. A lot of other teams freaked out and started paying guards $20 million a year because they didn't feel comfortable replacing them. Whether you think the Niners won or didn't in these sort of microtransactions, I do think that they've done a nice job on it. And I think Pooney has been really good as a guard. And I think that the simpler, the better there, right? Second you start pushing it a little bit with, doing some gap stuff and things like that, it's going to be maybe a bit hairy. Hope I'm wrong on that.
Yeah. I think, I'm with you. I like Pooney guard. I don't think you mess it up.
Strawberry reacts. So they may miss the playoffs. I mean, sure. I think anybody can miss the playoffs, right? Like every year in the NFL, a fourth place team.
That's very Kyle Shanahan of you. Anybody could.
I mean, who knows if we'll even have a season? What playoffs? Regardless, like I think if you had to make a bet on a first place team to fall off, or a true play, I mean, I guess Tampa would be a good bet there as well. But I think Tampa's fine, and that division isn't as everyone's just writing in Atlanta. Like maybe show me something first.
Yeah.
I think if you had to make a bet on somebody to drop off significantly year over year, that was already at a high perch. I think the 49ers would be a pretty good bet in that regard right now. That's
Yeah,
where I stand.
to me it's more health than anything.
Of course.
I think if this team is mostly healthy and they get Trent and Ayuk in the building, I still think 11 games is about right. Tough
Right.
schedule, but also if this team plays how it's supposed to, like they could win 13. You know, they could win.
Absolutely. They are an immensely talented team, but there are issues, and I think that every team has issues. No team is perfect. This team at one point could have maybe even made the argument they were close to perfect. They were so loaded
Right.
up, but that is clearly not the case anymore. And perhaps this is a recency bias. Perhaps this is just pessimism brain. All this. They haven't given me any reason to feel better about their chances this year from what I've seen from them on the practice field and what I've seen from them in preseason games.
I'm with you.
After an offseason that I didn't love.
I'm with you. Just to close for me, I think it's coming from a place of let's not just assume just because they have this most talented roster in football that it's all going to go smoothly. Pointing things out because they have to be pointed out that things could go wrong. These are the things we've seen that might go sideways, but in reality, this is still like an elite roster with an elite coaching staff that I would be shocked if they miss the playoffs. Be shocked.
It would be a shocker. I think that's fair. I'm trying to see who had the highest win total over under last season. That would have been the Cincinnati Bengals at 11.5. Who else was up in there? I mean, listen, the Browns were at 9.5 last year. That went, I think actually they won 9, didn't they? So, who knows? Sometimes the Cowboys mess it up. But Houston was at 6.5. Houston was at 6.5. Green Bay was at 7.5. They had Carolina at 7.5. I mean, betting markets are not a great barometer of things like this. Let me put it to you this way. I think it's easy money right now to take the under on 11.5. Easy money. It's not to say they won't make the playoffs. It's not to say that they're not going to be a good team. They might look like the best team in the NFL come the end of the season because, they fucked around at the beginning and then they came out and they beat Green Bay, they beat Buffalo, they beat Chicago, they beat the Rams, they beat Miami, they beat Detroit. And now, hey, we're back in it. Doesn't matter what happened in week 18. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And I think that the issue that we're having right now, or I'll just speak for myself, is that a lot of it has already gone wrong. And maybe they're just getting it out of the way, but it doesn't seem to be how it works in the NFL. There's not as big of a time frame as y'all think. If it's already gone wrong, it's probably not going to get corrected. Not at this juncture from my standpoint. They do have 3 weeks to figure it out. And first and foremost, that requires getting 71-11 in the building and just seeing what those, having elite players on your team can do to mitigate some of your shortcomings. Because right now the shortcomings are outpacing all the strengths that this team has, at least to our eyes, at least to my eyes.
I'm with you.
Yeah. I mean, listen, and Fred, you're coming in, the preseason lies all the time. Man, we're not even talking about preseason. We're talking about practice, not the game. Talk about practice. So I think we need to see a bit. I'll make it even more specific than this. I think we need to see a really crisp, effective, positive offensive practice from the 49ers tomorrow. I feel fine about the defense. I don't like the line. That's not going to change, right? That is what it is. Their secondary can make up for that. This is a secondary first defense right now. A-okay with me. I am concerned about the offense right now. And I need to see a crisp, effective, ass-kicking offensive performance in pads tomorrow from the 49ers to feel good about all this, because I don't think we learn anything on Friday, because I don't think the Raiders are treating it the same way the 49ers are.
Yeah, and I don't know if we're going to learn anything until Trent and Ayuk are back in the building, but we'll see.
And who knows when the fuck that's going to happen. Jake, a pleasure as always, my friend.
Appreciate you, sickos, and
Shouts
signing
to
off
sickos.
for the evening.
Apparently, we're the sickest of them all. Adios.
That's right.